This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk about the concept and role of the state, government, and public and private ownership. It is not new, but it has been uh, uh, more bashed. The state and the government is always the culprit for everything that seems to be wrong with our societies. Um, the public ownership, the public services, and public infrastructure, and everything else seems to be not well managed, seems to be just a waste of resources, and we are bombarded with the idea, with the narratives that glorify private management and private ownership. So therefore the privatization of everything is a good thing. Actually, this is a lie. Uh, and as all good lies, they need to have a part of truth. They cannot be blatant lies. They need to be the good lies, need also always to have some fair points. Does private management, can private management be better than public management? It depends. In certain circumstances and certain areas, private ownership, and especially when it comes to produce goods, especially the production of goods, and the small businesses, and the production of food and everything else, it can be that small private enterprises can be effective. They can be locally owned, and they can contribute to the community in many ways. But when it comes to big corporations, multinationals, that usually are tend to be monopolies, to become monopolies or cartels. They are very few, so they become a cartel, and they have so much money. They become so powerful that they control the governments. That's why we say the government is controlled. It's an oligarchy. It's not a democracy. We actually live in oligarchies. So, is it the government and the state that is the problem? What is the state? The state is the rules, institutions, the body of laws, the constitutional law of the land that is supposed to rule a country, and that is limited by borders. So therefore the law, usually a state has its own currency, or should have its own sovereign currency. To be a sovereign state, there is to start with, there is no sovereign state without a sovereign currency. Okay, this is an important point that people should understand. Cannot be sovereign. That's why the countries, it's an essential, it's a core feature of sovereignty. Not that is, people have to have a sovereign food system, food sovereignty, and a currency, their own currencies, that needs to be sovereign currency. This might not be, this could be less important if the international circumstances would be different, okay? But that's not the fact right now. So that's the state is, we are all part of the state. So the state is not a thing. The state is a process, is a living thing. It's a living thing because the state is what we all decide the state to be. Unfortunately, we do not decide what the state is, what the functions of the state should be, and what the role of the state should be, because there are others doing it for us. Okay? There are the oligarchs and the plutocrats that are the ones that dictate the rules for the rest of us. They are the ones that are behind the decisions, the political decisions, the legislative, the powers, the supposedly separated separation of powers, legislative, executive, and judicial, are not possible. They do not work, and they cannot work because as long as an oligarchy and as long as the rule, as long as the power is held by the oligarchs and plutocrats, of course, there cannot be democracy. It is an impossibility. So therefore the state is ruled. The state that the oligarchs, the billionaires, and others blame for everything that's wrong actually is ruled and controlled by them, not by us. So the public, which is us, and when we talk about public ownership, that public ownership is us, is about us. So because we are private citizens, but when we are talking about private ownership, is only the control of the ones that have enough influence and power to really dictate the rules by which the state is governed. So if we have to blame somebody about because the state is not working as it should, and the governments do not govern in the name, because we have only managed democracies managed in the name of the wealthy. They are not managed in the public interest. We should blame the ones that are influential in the design of the policies and implementation of the policies at the national and international level. And this is not new. So they blame the state because they want a weak state. They don't want a weak state, and this is the paradox. These people do not want a weak state. They want a weak public system. They want everything to privatize everything because that's how they can control everything. That's how they can control our lives. While talking bullshit about meritocracy, while making us, while imposing us austerity measures, politically driven, okay? They are not necessary. They are not in making and using the scarcity, the manufactured scarcity in order to make our lives, make us fight for each other, for crumbs. Okay, that's how the system works. So if you are working class, and by working class I don't mean only workers, we are all workers, or I mean, citizens that need to have a job or a small business, or they need to work every day. People that need to work every day in order to put food on the table, and usually don't have much money, cannot afford to go without work, or cannot even afford, don't have money for an emergency, a health emergency or some other emergency. So this is the people that this is the citizenry that primarily should not buy into the demonization of the state and the demonization of the government, because the government are them. They are the government. They are the ones that have influence and power and control over who is allowed to become president or to become part of the government. You know, the ones that want really the power to be diluted, you know, to be decentralized, to have this decentralized government, and those who want real democracy and freedom do not want that the government is they don't want to demonize the government, because they know the government is not a problem. We need a government. Of course, we need a democratic government, a government that governs for all of us, for the well-being of the nation, for the preservation of the sovereignty of the country. And by sovereignty, I mean exactly that the country is not usurped by foreigners, by foreign investment, by by plundering of the resources, but also by the national oligarchs, because that's unfortunately the oligarchy of the oligarchy usually becomes a kleptocracy. Okay, they become a kleptocracy because they do not care about the well-being of the entire nation, but the well-being of their own class. So they can align with foreign interests for the purpose of enhancing their own national interests, control, and accumulation of wealth and private property, while keeping their own fellow citizens in poverty and misery, and repressing them and killing them, and all the rest that everybody should know and should repeal. Should not the working class of all the world should never align with these people. But unfortunately, we are again falling for fascism, which is amazing, as if fascism is the solution for our problems. You know, we are ruled by plutocrats. The private banking and financial system that exists not only everywhere is a total perversion of what money should be about, of the role of money. And that is an important point when you talk about the state. One of the most important principles that should be that everybody should fight for, and many people do not understand it, that money is a public monopoly. Money, banking, and finance should be controlled by the state. And if we need international institutions for the clearance of the exchange of goods and services between countries, we can have institutions to do it, financial systems to do it, but we don't need the powerful, too big to fail banks and those powerful institutions like BlackRock and Vanguard and others that control immense wealth, so therefore they can have power not only over the governments of the countries where they have the headquarters, but also of so many countries around the world. So that's why many countries cannot be sovereign, because they are dependent, controlled, repressed, colonized, bribed by foreign colonial institutions, private institutions. Neocolonialism is a form of colonialism, or is a form of imperialism that mainly uses private entities, and especially financial and banking institutions that through the idea of investment and aid and public-private partnerships and other mechanisms, they control the economy and finances of countries that supposedly, in theory, are sovereign. No, they are not sovereign. They are neo-colonialists. They are controlled by these neo-colonial powers. So, when we think about the state, we need to think about the relevance of the public ownership of money. Not like we have today, that most money is created by private entities, by private commercial banks. They create the money. They are the ones that can pick and choose who gets the money. Okay? And governments the governments do not need to go into debt in order to finance and to pay their bills. They can create the money themselves or through the central bank. This idea that there is no lack of money, because money is not a thing. Money is a medium of exchange. Money is part of an accounting system, and money is useful to pay taxes, which can be used by governments in order to destroy money. And by destroying money is taking money from the economy in order to not allow inflation to rise, and even interest, which is called usury, should be abolished. We do not need this. This is something that I am profoundly that I'm talking about if humanity does not get to understand that money cannot be controlled privately, which is exactly what the reality we have now. We will be slaves forever. This is nothing to do, because then there is a lot of propaganda and a lot of misinformation and wrong and people talking about that only gold is money. That is bullshit. Gold is a commodity, so therefore if its money is attached to gold, money is, you have sound money. No, first, that's not the money. The system, the international system, could not function properly. There is not enough gold. I mean, it just doesn't. It would not. First of all, it's not workable. But besides that, it would not go away the inequality and underdevelopment of the nations. Because who are those who accumulate the gold, that have the money and that have or the power to accumulate most of the gold? How does it work in an international level to level the field, the playing field? How does it work if the gold is accumulated by several powerful nations and the others just have very little of it? How does it play? No, gold is not money, and gold is not the solution. You can have gold if you want to have something that is incorruptible, so you can have gold as your own reserve, because it's like any other material that is valuable. You can store it and you can use it later if you need it as a reserve, okay? As a reserve of value, a physical reserve of value, as any other commodity that you can store and keep safe, and you can store in a safe way. But gold is not money. Money is insubstantial. Money doesn't have substance. Money is part of the virtual world. Money is not a physical entity. Money is symbolic. Therefore, money should be only should never be, because this is incredible. Because when you do not understand this, and you believe, based on the ideas of meritocracy, and because private enterprises always are more efficient, and the state this and that, you are shooting yourself on the foot, because you are being enslaved by private companies. Of course, there is nothing to do. The small, a network of small banks, even private banks, it would not harm anybody. It could provide a good service for the public and for the local communities, and even at the national level. But then they should remain small. Never allow them to grow. They should have a ceiling. Like there should be a ceiling, for a maximum ceiling for the accumulation of wealth and private property. And people do not understand this, because it's always like blah blah blah, like that is a morality. It's a moral right. If you earn it, it's yours, and nobody should take it away from you, and blah blah blah. As if we earn everything we have alone, only by our own means. If we do not use a network, and we don't have to exploit we don't have to use resources and everything else that doesn't belong to us. I use an example of, for example, water. If you have water, if you have a community and you have a well or a pond or a river, and a private entity comes and takes over that, creates a few jobs for something, but then you run out of water for your own community in exchange for a few jobs. You don't get any. You are going to be impoverished. Your livelihoods are going to be destroyed. Probably your environment are going to be destroyed. In the end, the corporation, when it is not profitable anymore, just leaves, and you are left with the problems, and you have been destroyed. And somehow, this taking over of public assets and public resources for private profit is somehow the only way to develop an economy. That is really strange. That is really stupid, I would say. So that should be, in my opinion, discussed. We need to discuss those things. We need to know about them. We need to understand them, the relation between why our lives suck. Why do we need to have stupid jobs? Why do we need to work so many long hours? Why do our lives, why should we be always worried about losing a job, losing our houses, have no money to pay the rent, have no money to for a medical emergency or for other kind of emergency? Why is that? If there is money, is not the problem. The problem is real assets. You know, it is the resources that are required, the raw materials that are required to produce the goods and products we need. You know, the energy, the resources, the energy we need to survive, the food, the devices, the appliances and everything we need to run an economy and the society. That's what matters. So it's the only reason why we cannot money can be a problem is when there is more money than there is available products to be bought and sold, to be bought. So that's so I think today I don't have time. I have to go, but this is one a very important point, and this is another thing. Of course, I'm not able to elaborate on these kind of topics because these topics are interconnected, and we need to understand them in a holistic way. That's the point, and we need to understand deeply the role of the state and the government. Do not allow people to tell you that the government is bad, the government is this, is that. It is a lie. It is not. It is true in in the present context, because actually the government is run by the people that tell you that. It's exactly the people that tell you those lies. The ones that run the system, that's the one that tell you because they want to weaken it, but in the name to have themselves more control of it against us. They don't want to lose the control of the state. They want a state. They just want a state centralized and controlled by them, even more that already is. That's the point. Okay? Okay, I'm going to leave it here for the moment. I will come back to this subject because it's, in my opinion, is one of the most important subjects that we should discuss, and we need to understand. And in as part of a complex system where we live, we need to understand it in a holistic way in order to think about solutions, to think about how can we really find the solutions for this mess where we are in. Or do we want to be slaves and they want to be under to live under a techno-fascist system? Do you really want that? I mean, is that what we really want? Or we want more freedom and we want to have lives with meaning that we can really enjoy true freedom? Okay, thank you for listening. I'll be back.